Welcome to Objection to the Forum. I'm happy to have Jennifer Young with us this week. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I want to talk a little bit about the real estate market and kind of your experience as a real estate agent in Wilmington, North Carolina.
All right. Well, let's do it.
So I believe you're with Nest Agency.
Yes, Nest Realty in Wilmington. We have two offices. So I'm the Wilmington office. We have a Carolina Beach office as well.
And the Wilmington, is that the Mayfair one?
Yes.
It's really nice from what I remember.
Oh, yeah. I think it's been just a little over a year. I think Christmas was like our full year was December. But yeah, brand new office inside. Interiors are amazing. It's like a little surf nest.
Yeah.
But so is the Carolina Beach office too. So.
Yeah. I hadn't been out to that one yet, but I saw it was a really cool location and,
Yep.
and seeing a lot of the pictures, and it just seemed like a nice outfit.
Oh yeah, it is. It's been great. Even, it's open air office, so you can kind of get in and get out and still get to wave at my fellow colleagues during this wonderful COVID time.
Yeah, well, are you working in the office during COVID, or are you kind of?
Not really, because I have a work from home mentality works for me as well. But going in and out of the office, I do. But I don't have to sit there to work. I can work from anywhere. So
yeah. That's
the benefit.
For sure. So I understand you've got a team at Nest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I've got the Fresh Nest Homes is my team. I'm the lead broker, so I do primary listings, but I work with all buyers and listings. Again, I don't discriminate. So I have Mary Rayner on my team. She's my buyer's agent, so she's the go-to for any of my buyers who need, dedicated attention in this market. They can, she can be driven all different directions right now. So
I can imagine.
So we need two of us for sure. And then I've got my assistant and marketing team as well.
Cool. Well, I'm glad that you know both ends of it, because I wanted to talk a little bit about some buyer strategies and seller strategies and kind of how what you're experiencing right now, and kind of help some of the folks listening or watching maybe give some useful information if they're considering buying or selling real property.
Sure.
But I understand your expertise to be mainly in listing, or I know you have expertise in both areas, but you're kind of more of the listing agent of your team.
Yes, I'm primarily listing agent because everything goes under my, how it works. It's just my name on the signs. Yeah. But yes, so I will deal mostly with the listings, and again, working just as much with buyers, especially in this market. It's you still have buyers everywhere right now, so you have to be very voiced in both terms, because if you only list, how are you supposed to represent your seller the right way when you have buyers asking to buy your property?
Well, where are you seeing most of the buyer, or not where are they coming from, but I guess, are you seeing a lot of folks coming in from out of town right now?
Oh yeah. So relocation is a big one. A lot of locals moving up and also downsizing, both. And a lot of people even just from North Carolina, just in different sectors, Charlotte, Raleigh, different beach towns coming in. So it's been a very diverse market this year, not just retirees, but it's heavy, obviously. It's always heavy in retirees. But I think what we saw was a lot more people moving from the city areas coming in because they could work from anywhere. And I think they saw an opportunity with their work that was going to allow them to do that for at least now 1, 2, maybe eventually, eternity. So for them not to have to be there to work in Charlotte or wherever they were before. So their beach home has now become their vacation spots now.
Yeah, I saw an article. It was maybe Fox Business or one of those
the
things.
Allied Van Lines
that might have been it, where it was like, this is what $700,000 gets you in Wilmington. And
there's a few of them out there.
Some of those, and so I guess it's like for folks maybe in some of the larger cities, it's like $700,000 doesn't get you too far. No. But in this market, you can get a very nice home for that.
Yes, you can. Well, for now.
Yeah, well, that's true, and that's a good
no,
point.
You can get a really cute house for $250,000. It just depends on what you're looking for, right? But yeah, the market for where we are, our taxes, they kill it with the taxes here as compared to what other cities have to pay. So they can really afford a lot more house, and then your interest rates are the lowest in history. So why not? Why not buy something?
That's right. And so I understand that right now there's kind of a shortage of inventory or houses available to sell. So would you recommend selling right now, or is it more one of those things where I guess you'd have to have a pretty clear exit plan? What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Because I guess you can always sell more and get more, but then you're probably looking at paying more also.
Yeah, it goes both ways, and it's an interesting question because I've had a lot of clients coming to me with the same type of situation. So there's, inventory's low. We probably have, I think last time I checked just the other day, was under 2 months of inventory, which is nothing. I mean, that means under 2 months, if everyone sold, we would be out of homes to buy.
What's standard for inventory?
It's really, sometimes you 4, 5, 6 months, would be a nice equal balance.
I got to Wilmington around 2007, and so it was like right when.
Oh yeah, that was when.
Yeah, and I remember it seemed like what everybody's worried about was the banks owned so much that they were rolling it out slow because they didn't want to just totally depress the market. And I remember, I remembered like a year and a half's inventory, something like that. So I'm not familiar with that term.
It's too much. Yeah, it's too much. That's too much. That's when you have like too much going on, and so your prices are driving, and they're in the toilet, and then your interest rates are higher. So it's not really it's pulling all in the wrong directions, I guess you could say. Great for some, not for others. But our market right now is really just the sellers. Like, I personally recommending my sellers sell now if you can. If you don't have anywhere to go, I've got one seller who's like, I'll sell now if I make X. I will sell now and go rent just to get out of this house now, just in case. Because no one has the crystal ball, right? Like,
that's
everything
right.
is all of they, as they say, whoever they are, right? Our market's going to continue all the way through 2022. They think 2021 is going to be just as good as 2020 in the real estate business. The interest rates, they don't expect those to move. But then if you talk to somebody else or hear another, podcast or some other guy talking, right, they're going to say maybe the total opposite. So there's a battle of that. So if you don't know, the market is really good, you might as well if you're going to make bank on your house and sell it now, and you're going to be able to move on to your next journey or whatever that is free of the house, then go ahead and do it. Also buying, go ahead and buy it. Even though it's a little higher on the market side, interest rates are so low, you can afford that difference. So it's really kind of like, you're paying a little bit more, but your payment's still the exact same, if not lower, than say you were looking at $500 and now you're looking at $700. But you're still paying the same amount of money.
That's a good way of looking at it.
It's kind of a double-edged for some people.
Well, so within the issue of when should you sell, I'd always heard that you want to sell, that you want to be on the market in time to sell and get out of the house by the school year changing, because people are concerned with getting established in a home, I guess, so their children can,
the fall turnover and
that's
everything.
That's right. Yeah. Does that really matter, or is that a driver?
Not right now.
Yeah.
It was really weird last year. Because of that, we weren't really sure how that was going to affect our fall market. And the fall market, I didn't slow down. I didn't slow down literally from January, March through the whole. My third and fourth quarter were probably my largest quarters of the year. They were my largest quarters of the year, but. And then now the fourth quarter is falling into the first quarter now. We did not slow down because kids weren't in school. Parents could do what they needed to do. The kids could go with their computer in the car while parents went home shopping. So it didn't slow down our market, because and also people started thinking, how important is school district if my kids are going to be
well, that's right. Yeah,
on
if you're
computer.
just on the computer, what's it matter?
And private schools started picking up in their admissions. So private schools, you don't have to live, you can live anywhere. So as I've always preached to my clients, do not buy a house based on school district. It is not why you should live there.
I'm glad you said that, because that's I'm not a parent, so I don't really know really, but it just seems like to me, in your average community, is there that big of a difference between the schools and the public school system?
There are in some. There are some major differences in obviously bigger cities and smaller cities too. And in Wilmington. Wilmington has its own things with people claiming this district's better than that district, this high school's better than that high school. Depends on the child, right? Depends on what your needs are for your kid and what they need in their schooling. My child goes to a private school, but that's only because my husband went to Catholic private school, so I had no say. I was like, no, she can go. Let's test it out. Let's see what it's like. But the school districts just did a huge revamp of all of their maps. So anybody who had no kids when they were like, I have to be in the Hoggard School District. Okay, but you don't even have children yet. Yeah. Okay, so I have to be in the Hoggard. Or
so you're like 14, 15 years old.
Yeah.
You think,
or even they're thinking elementary, but whatever it is, Ogden. Oh, I got to be in Ogden. Got to be in Ogden. Obviously, that's, one of the number one. And then I'm like, they just moved all the lines around. So what are you going to do now?
How would you know? So if you're trying, let's say you're not a parent, you're not really concerned with that, but you're just thinking as an investor, you're thinking, I want to get
resale value.
Right. Yeah, I want to make sure I'm buying in a good school district. Well, is there objective rankings that you can look at, kind of like the U.S. News and World Reports for colleges and things like that?
I send them to the ncreportcards.com. That's my go-to site, and I let the buyer needs to investigate because it's important to them what is on that report, not me. Yeah. So, and it's also just liability. I don't want to be selling a school.
No, I can see that. I mean, it's you don't want to be.
Yeah, and they get there and they hate it.
Yeah. Jennifer said that I would love that school.
Kitchen, yeah. I'm sorry about that, but I can't do anything about the school.
Yeah. Well, so it's all right. It's a good time to sell, but you do have to have a plan for where you want to go. So if you decide you want to sell, do you think you just find an agent and put it on the market, or what kind of prep work do you think you should look into prior to selling listing a home?
The first thing you have to do is call me, and then you call Jennifer, and she will hook you up. No, honestly, you do need a realtor, and I know a lot of people think our market is so hot. I'll just put a for sale by owner sign in the yard. Put it in Facebook Marketplace, whatever.
Do people do that? Do people put their houses on Facebook?
Yes, all the time. And what happens is you get a million people. Oh, how pretty it is! Do you have pictures? Do you have a floor plan? Do you have the price? Do you have all these questions? Yeah. When if you would have done it right the first time, all that information would have already been out there, and they wouldn't be asking you 5,000 questions. But what do I know? So you put it. The market is basically driving, but it's realtor driven too. Your buyers are with the realtor. The buyers are on Zillow, and then they call a realtor to what? Show them the house. So so you going as a for sale by owner, you're just hanging out in the wind because you're not in the MLS. You're in Zillow. You get to go in Zillow. I think they're about to change some major rules with Zillow too, and I haven't been able to keep up with all that.
Can you explain Zillow to me? So like what I know Zillow as is what I know Zillow as is if I want to see a guesstimate of what a property is worth, I can enter in the address and it'll show that.
So it's as good really as the information entered. It's about as like that's what I always tell people with Zillow. It's only as good as the information entered into MLS. So if the price that was sold last, or the prices that were sold and Zillow isn't picking the correct price, it could also pull an old sale price. Zillow is not 100%. So there's not it pulls from the MLS portals and the data, but it doesn't always, and the tax records. So the tax records are always wrong. Yeah. You have wrong information in there all the time. So I put a listing in one time, and Zillow pulled it as a 3-bedroom, 7-bath house. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, that's odd. But
whatever, Yeah. So that guesstimate goes off of whatever information it's pulling from the tax records and what's sold in Zillow. But if your realtor goes and runs comps for you, that's going to be real-time information that runs in the back of our MLS showing real-time closings, the real pricing plus concessions that are given at closing. Just because you sold for $500,000 on the front end, there could have been a $10,000 incentive in the back end for the buyer saying, so really they closed at $490. Yeah. But you would never know that unless you had a realtor pull information.
That's a very good point.
It's back end info.
Well, and I guess the other part of my question about how Zillow works and what it is how are buyers using Zillow do they just drive by a house they like and say, oh, I'm going to look up what that's worth? Okay, so Zillow's not.
Zillow's used as kind of a tool for the buyer. My buyers use, a lot of them they're addicted to Zillow and Realtor.com. So they're like, oh, I'm set up on Realtor.com, so I see the listings through there. So I'm like, okay, fine, claim me as your realtor so I can follow you on Realtor, and then I can see everything you're looking at. So I can at least see it. And then when they say, hey, Jen, I want to see this house, they just shoot me the link. I can pull it up in MLS and get the real stuff. And then I have to tell them, oh, it's pending, sorry, because it's not real time. It's not as real time. They try, but they can't. They can't. It's impossible for the systems to pull as quickly as we enter. Because the second I say it's pending or sold, it's sold or pending in MLS. So the second you go back and refresh, it's there. You can go to Zillow for like a day or two and it's still open.
It seems like that'd be a frustrating process, especially like with how quickly things are moving right now. If you're relying on Zillow for that. But I guess from my standpoint, it seems like you would just, if you go to a real estate agent, what I've always done in the past when I've bought properties is kind of give the agent kind of a general idea of what I'm looking for, and then they'll kind of shoot me some examples that might fit the list. But I guess you're saying, so I guess that's kind of changing today, where people are kind of maybe more do-it-yourself types, or they like to do the kind of the front end shopping.
Yeah, they know what they want, and so I feel, I mean, I still set up portals. I still set up the information just like that to send them things so they can get the freshest, the newest listing. They can also see, it's good for a buyer to be able to see when something goes pending, so they can kind of see, okay, she's not lying. She's not full of it saying, if you see a house you like, you better tell me so we can go look at it. Or if you see a house you like, let's get on it. Don't wait and haul around it, because it could be gone. And then, if they see these houses moving and pending like that, and then also they see them selling, they can see the sales price. So then they know, I'm not going to go in and lowball this guy, because everyone's at full ask on this block. So they can do their own due diligence of their own if they like. And if not, it just sits in their email and they call me and say, I really like that house that you just sent me. Let's go look at it. And a lot of times my buyers are very, they're already like ready. So they're like super ready to go, right? So they've already picked out all their houses and they just like throw up all these listings on me. And so I have to check them out, and what's left of it we'll go look at.
Are you doing much sight unseen purchases or virtual purchases, kind of in light of what we got going on right now?
I am doing a lot. Well, I was doing a lot more. It's a lot more in person now. But I sold, I think I did three sight unseen until they got here and closed and moved to your houses, and those were
that's a big leap of faith.
I mean, I did a lot of video FaceTiming, a lot of FaceTime showings. That was fun because it's just kind of like, here's the house, video. They still, though, the biggest thing was they can't smell it. It's a crazy thing. You want to smell.
I guess that's where they gotta. If you're there, you gotta say, hey, this looks nice, but there's a situation.
And my nice could be different than your nice.
Well, that's right. Well, I guess if you're the listing agent, you're not gonna want to scare people off.
No, but mine were buyer's agent. Like if I would do it for the buyer, so I would go into the houses and show them, and I'm like, okay, it looks really nice. It smells clean, So I had to really like all senses on, and you also have to read their reaction through the phone is really hard because you can't read body language. And I'm like, want to see their face and like their reaction if it's you're like, are you frowning in there? Are you excited? Are you quiet because you're thinking, or are you, don't like it? Let's go. But when you're in person, it's so much easier and faster to be able to read what your clients think, and sometimes.
So what kind of body language will a disappointed buyer give when they're not?
I mean, there's all
kinds. Is it just kind of the sad frown, or is it?
It just depends on that buyer's personality, right? But you could get the full on oh no. And they're like, nope. They'll tell you right off the bat, or you can get the kind of the faces like disappointed look. You can kind of see that where it wasn't what it was in the photos. Yeah. That's the worst. People are like, oh, but the pictures, and I'm like, I know.
The pictures will always get you.
Pictures are not always 1,000 words.
No, so do you try to salvage it? Like, well, I don't know, this has potential.
Oh yeah, of course. You want to look to see, but honestly, like in this market and as fast as it's moving, like if you don't feel it when you walk in, you can't. A house usually isn't gonna get sold. Like you can't convince somebody unless it's just an investor, or it's not really gonna be a full-time home, or it's kind of a stepping stone for maybe So it's a lot of times it's very emotional for most people.
That's interesting that you say that, because it's my understanding that it's low inventory and it's a seller's market. But then kind of what I'm hearing you say is that you've got to make sure you have your house right when you're trying to sell it. And so, I mean, what's a buyer like? How can you be, if you're in a seller's market? How can the buyers get away with being so demanding?
Yeah, and be so picky.
Yeah.
Well, the sellers, they think they have the upper hand because it is a seller's market with pricing and also their display of the home. So, I'll go back to listing agent side in a second, but as a buyer's agent, I always tell them, I run comps. If they're really interested, I have to go back and run comps. If the seller is completely out of their mind on price, I have to show them that on paper. It's up to the buyer to decide if they want to pay that price, or do you want to try to get, get back into reality pricing over here. May or may not work. The buyers are picky. Even they still have new inventory out there. It's just not ready. So you've got buyers out there that claim that they can't wait for a new build, but with the prices the way they're going on resales, sellers have to be really careful that their competition is still new homes. I mean, you still have some national builders out there and some local builders that are building some beautiful houses in great brand new neighborhoods, and they're still popping up.
Yeah.
Just because it's not right there and ready and in inventory doesn't mean it's not going to be in 6 months, 8 months, or a year. And that buyer could wait. And that's what I had a lot of people do last year, was they rented. And they waited because they just lost too many opportunities because it was just too quick. They weren't fast enough, or they just didn't want to pay. So people were like, I'm just going to go get a new house. It's a lot easier. I can do it at my speed and get it exactly like I want it.
Well, then what type of things should you take care of if you're a seller and you're trying to get your house sold? What are the kind of the top 5 things that you got to take care of and make sure your house is in order to make it marketable?
Well, sure. Now, today in our, area, so being in Wilmington and by the beach and everything, I think most importantly is your exterior. You got to have the curb appeal first, because buyers don't want to waste time. Realtors don't want to waste time. They drive by it and see, the yard is like really rough, or the house is really dirty, or, like the curb appeal just isn't there. Let's just move on to the next one. And they'll do that.
Really?
Yes. And the sellers get mad because you didn't come in. But as a buyer's agent, you can't force them. If they don't want to waste time and you're on a schedule, they could just call and cancel an appointment on you last minute. So that kind of stinks, right? So you want to at least get them in the door, because the house could be perfect. But you're like, just go inside. And they're like, no, I don't want to. So you have to keep going. So that's, I think, curb appeal number 1. You got to power wash. You got to cleaned up. You make your windows sparkle. Get your screens cleaned. All that kind of stuff. People a lot of times just, they think about it, it's going to get done, and then they forget. And then interior, you got to have fresh paint. You got to look clean. You got to smell good. And declutterize, and just make everything as clean. The word clean in that sense is super clean, like really clean.
Yeah, and so with
Scrub it up clean.
with decluttering, and I guess there's a lot. I guess it can kind of perhaps make the house look bigger if you have less room, and I guess it kind of just,
less furniture and less stuff in the corners and
stuff. Yeah. All right, so we got curb appeal, declutter,
painting, and cleaning. Getting it really clean. And then when I say clean, clean those carpets, clean the walls, touch up the walls, clean all of just clean it, just get it super clean, deep clean. You may think you're clean, but someone else is clean. Like, these buyers are coming into model homes constantly. Those model homes do not get used. They're, they don't get lived in. The stoves don't get cooked on. The microwaves don't get fingerprints all over them. Like, you have to have your house. Like, when you're going to sell, just pretend like you don't live there, and it's this, my brother is needing to sell his house. He lives in Killeen, right? Mm-hmm. So he's in Texas, so he needs to sell his house. My mom's an agent out there, so he's talking to us, what do I need to do to get it ready? Both of us at the same time, get rid of your dogs. He was like, how do I do that? And I was like, no one wants to smell you, and they don't want to smell your dogs. I said they want to walk into a house that is, clean, pet-free, people-free. It's like people just want to think that they just walked into a model every time.
Well, that's exactly right. And, especially with the dog smell, because, it might be that it just needs a quick clean, or it might be, seeped into the floors and that sort of thing. And that's not a good situation.
Other pet issues can happen. But dogs, like, you're the owner of a dog, doesn't bother you. And like a cat box, certain things. But
well, that doesn't seem like major. I mean, that seems like kind of common sense things that aren't like that you should be able to do in a couple weeks. Mm-hmm. Yep. So it doesn't seem like you're talking about a major renovation or anything like that.
I wouldn't recommend any major renovations on a house unless you had an open wall that wasn't finished. Like, if you have unfinished projects, finish them. Or get them to a point where they can look really finished, and then give the person, say, okay, you can paint this room any color you want. Mm-hmm. Flooring in this room, you can choose an allowance. You can choose anything you want. A lot of times the thing is, buyers, yes, it used to be the way, it's a clean I can do whatever I want. This is great. I can come in and you're going to give me money to paint. You're going to give me money to get new carpet. So those allowances were wonderful. buyers don't want to do it today. They don't want the headache. They don't want the stress. They want to move in and be done. Like, I've even tried with new homes. I've even tried selling to my buyers. Like, you can save thousands of dollars if you wait till after you move in and hire a contractor to do these few things. And they're like, nope, I don't want to do it. I'll pay. Because they would rather have it done. They don't want desks. They don't want the painters. They don't want people coming in and out of the house.
Well,
so it's just really a preference of the buyer. So you really kind of, if you leave that open, I feel like it's a 50-50. Like, you kind of like took 50% of the market out.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, it does. Yeah, some people there's they don't want to deal with any kind of inconvenience.
They're like, I just want to move in.
Yep.
Leave my house.
Well, so how would you say that HGTV affects kind of your typical residential transaction these days?
That's it's the HGTV effect is basically what I call it to my buyers and my sellers. I let them know, like, the sellers are really just, they're trained with this eye of the television and the Instagram pretty and the perfection that we have put on even just a picture of coffee these days.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, imagine what your house has to look like. You have to have, my stager, she puts little, I like to call them like Instagram sections where when the photographer comes in, literally she's like, of a plant. I'm like, but it looks so pretty of the plant and the table. And then you see the wall in the kitchen.
Yeah.
So she's looking at it in the same way that you have to look at your house as a big, just like Instagram post. Like, everything's got to be perfect. And the buyers, if it's not perfect. I have houses that are like brand spanking new inside, but they're not new. They've been lived in. So they have a little, corks and here's and things that, refrigerator's not perfectly clean and brand new, but you can't get it any cleaner. It's just the way it looks after it's been used. And they're like, oh, and I'm like, what? Really? So, I mean, there's little things. You get such a good deal when you can buy resale because you have a lot of amenities in the house that people don't think about when they're buying new construction. So you're actually winning when you buy a resale that's really fresh and pretty much new, because you've got appliances, you've got already included refrigerator, usually a washer and dryer, maybe a garage fridge, blinds, the upgrades that maybe the owner has already put in that you don't have to do now, maybe surround sound speakers, yard, fence, things that people don't think about. It costs thousands of dollars after you close. I'm like, but just this one's so pretty.
Yeah. Well, so as far as marketing goes, I mean, do you use things like Instagram or social media, or are you mainly just going through the MLS?
So with marketing for me, like when I list, so that's one of my biggest selling features to list with me versus, say, another realtor. And my marketing, I like to pride myself on because I do a lot of social media, a lot of, Instagram, Facebook, but also broker outreach is extremely important. And you want to grab their attention. You want to give them something to bite at your email that you send out, hopefully come to an open house. The broker opens these days and stuff are so minimal. So you really have to reach a lot harder than you did before because everyone wanted free lunch. Now no one wants to be anywhere near anybody. So if I put it on the porch, will you come visit? So I think the marketing, you've got to reach way further. I reach out, obviously, and then you've got Google and you've got all the ads. So now it's internet marketing. I mean, it's heavy internet marketing, however you want to do it. So through social media, all your portals, broker outreaches. I mean, you have to just really push it hard and you have to keep doing it because it's like, magazine every month you get in the mail or a postcard every month you get in the mail. Well, social media and stuff, I mean, it's like, it's gone. The second you sent it, it's already at the end of someone's feed. So everyone, it's very rare to see mailers anymore. And I think it's almost kind of, you're exactly right. Things are moving too fast for that right now. Yeah. Like by the time you send a mailer, it should be gone. It should be sold, but
well, how long is your typical home last on the market in this climate?
Honestly, if it's priced right, staged well, and in the locations that it needs to be, you're rolling out 1 day to literally maybe 10 days on the market. It's averaging, I don't know what the actual average is because the averages around here are very skewed because anybody obviously can tell you if you've got a water property or anything that's worth anything, it's gone like immediately. Our luxury market slows a little bit just because that's a different type of buyer, but your market between $250 to say $350 and now it's $450. I mean, if it's, like I said, if it's priced right and it looks pretty it's usually gone. Like it's a quick move, and multiple offers still happening, paying over ask or at ask, and appraisals are catching up too. So we're not having those issues.
That was going to be two questions I was going to ask you. Is one, so when you're putting together an offer, if you're representing a buyer, I mean, I would have a hard time, like conceptually, with, all right, if they're saying they're selling it for, let's say, 400, why would I offer more than that?
Right.
But I understand, like, you know, there's, with what's going on right now, you've got multiple offers.
Yeah.
So do you advise people to go in over or?
Yeah, again, it's kind of what your buyer's preference and ability is. So you have to find out their buying power. If they've got it and you say, look, you know, you really want this house, what's $10K going to do to you monthly?
Yeah.
You know, if you can afford it, what can you afford monthly? And I try to help them backwards, you know. So like, what is it monthly that you're trying to do? And let's see what you can afford to bid. Because if you overpay it, how long are you going to be in the house? That's another thing. That's a very important question that a lot of people forget to ask. How long do you plan on being in this house? Is this like, oh, my husband's only going to be here for 2 years and then we're going to move? Well, you might not win the money back. So it's really like, you know, you're going to be investing a little bit extra cash into this house. You may not get it all back at the end. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
You're going to be here this is your retirement home and you plan on being here until whenever. Well, then, yeah, put the extra few grand in, because if it's going to be the house you want, you don't want to lose it over that, you know.
Well, you mentioned appraisals catching up, because that was one of the things, I guess, that I was seeing as being a potential shortfall of doing that. So if you say, well, I really want this house, I'm going to go offer the extra $10,000 over ask,
right?
And then they accept, but then your appraisal
is not there.
Yeah. So I mean, and I'd heard, so I know that appraisers are like everybody else. There's just, they're kind of overworked, and there's not enough in the market to keep up with what all's going on. I'm seeing the price of appraisals raising and whatnot. It's taking them longer to get them done. But for a while, some of the people were complaining that there weren't enough appraisers in our market, and so people were coming in from out of town
that was awful.
that weren't. So I guess that was the thing. I guess I heard correctly. Yeah,
yeah.
That they weren't familiar with the market, and
they weren't even in our MLS. I don't even know how they were doing comps.
Yeah,
no idea.
And so they were coming back with these just off appraisals that were compromising a lot of the sales, I guess, because the loans were falling through.
Right. Yeah, we did have, and that was more, I feel like, towards, I think it started correcting a little heavier on the fourth quarter side. The appraisers are still overworked. I mean, they definitely are working way, many more days and hours than they were before. And people give them give them crap for it. But I'm like, yeah, I know they're taking forever, but you have to think, like, they didn't just do your house today. They did like probably 5 or 6. I don't know how many they do a day, and they have to come back and review all of those. But the numbers caught up towards the end really well. I think at the beginning we were stuck in 2019 sales. So those people that were coming in droves to buy up all of our inventory come March for some crazy reason, what was going on? They were willing to pay the difference. You'd say a $400,000 house, and they offered $420,000, and they'd pay the $20,000 cash. They had it. That was the thing. And then you've got buyers who don't have it, so then they were losing out. So it was awesome and sucked at the same time.
What do you advise people now that with the kind of the delays and the appraisals, when you're putting together an offer? Because I imagine you want your offer to be competitive. Yeah,
that's the hard.
But then you don't want to you don't want to sign up for something that you can't that you can't.
Yeah, so I leave that up to my lender to help me decipher my days, because if it's a loan, they know what are your appraisers running today, and they can tell me. So if it's a lender that I currently work with all the time, then that lender, I kind of already know, like, it's 35 days, 45 days. I'm not going to push it. So let's do 45 days and then, for a closing. Because if you tighten that rope on them, you're just going to shoot yourself in the foot. But at the time, there were really crazy agents out. I don't know what was going on or where these agents' minds were. They were doing like 15-day closings or 15-day due diligence. And I was like, what, is this your first house in COVID? Because this is not possible. Yeah. I was like, I mean,
buyers agents were submitting those
submitting
offers?
offers with super short due diligence time frames. And so I was like, that's not going to work. Like, you have to do this. That's not going to win you the offer. My seller's not going to choose you because I know you can't do that. So I just it was almost like educational, because we had a lot of buyers agents coming in and newer agents coming in last year, like real heavy at a time when you really needed to be the most experienced that you have ever been in your life. We had tons of new people rolling in.
It seems like the pendulum's kind of swung a little bit in the favor of putting substantial due diligence fees and offers as well.
Raleigh started that on us. I think it's good and bad. I mean, it depends on who you market, right? So if I'm a buyer's agent, the due diligence fees are awful. We hate those. Yeah. But as a seller's agent, it's like, oh, we're going to ask for the biggest due diligence we can get, but that's what sellers want. But you know, that holds your buyer in the pool. You know, they got some skin in the game. So they're not just going to fly up and walk.
Well, I think, for a while, you know, and I'd had a couple folks contact me after deals fell through.
Had to get the money back.
Yeah, and you know, the bar contracts changed over the years, and I believe, you know, the most current version has the seller's only remedy if the buyer backs out during the due diligence period, or even after the due diligence period, is getting to keep the earnest money.
Yeah.
And so, you know, what is it? You know, some of these things, you know, I would see, you know, $1 million houses with like $2,000 earnest money and stuff, but they were held up for
30 days.
Well, more than that sometimes. but it was just wild to me that was going on. But it seems like that started to change a little bit.
Yeah, no, it did. It started to change. I think that it still was in the back of people's heads, the due diligence fees, until they started seeing how quickly the buyers were jumping on property and then jumping out.
Yeah.
And then that's because of the overprice. They started getting buyer's remorse, and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't pay for that. I don't want to pay for that. I don't want to pay over 10 grand, 20 grand over that house. I want my money back. Let's go somewhere else. Or something else pops on the market, because that's what else was happening. It's like, no inventory, but yet you got a new one that just popped on, and they hop over there. And that happened a few times, you know, with my deals and my clients. So I worked sellers and buyers that did that. And nothing you can do about it but follow what they want.
Yeah. No, the internet's a great thing, but it sure can make things difficult.
Yeah, it moves quick. So, you know, the buyers are on it if they're serious, and the sellers, you know, they want to protect themselves and not lose out on the buyers that they could. But, you know, you got to take, that's the one thing I personally don't like about our MLS, is that you have to put it pending within a certain amount of days. And I'm like, I wish it would be kind of like, you don't have to put it pending for due diligence period, so you can just kind of keep, you know, just keep active.
Well, you can still show a home when it's
pending with showings. But as soon as you see the pending with showings, it usually tapers way down, you know, because people don't want to mess with the backup offer.
That's what I was going to ask you. Is like, what's the deal with backup offers? Can you're free to take them, and the person making the offer needs to understand that this is contingent upon the other offer falling through?
There's a whole list on the form that basically breaks down, like, you know, here's your offer. It's just like a real offer. So if it comes into effect, it's already negotiated. So all the terms are negotiated, and then they don't deliver the due diligence fee, if there is one, until it goes into effect. And the earnest money can actually be delivered to the attorney's office and be sitting there waiting to roll. But yet they can't do anything with that house until the first contract backs out. And so they just sit. And I was on ends of a few backup offers myself for buyers, which never came to anything. That they closed, so we just terminated the backup, got the money back. And then several sellers had backup offers. So, I mean, the sellers feel great when they have backup offers, because they're like, I don't care what happens now, and they're like all relaxed. But I mean, that buyer that's the backup offer could still be finding and be under contract on another house.
That's a good point. So then you got a backup offer.
You got a backup offer, but they're under contract.
So can you get out it? So if you're just a backup offer,
you can cancel it and not
anytime.
Take it. Yeah, because you can, if you're under contract, you can now choose, well, should I cancel this one and take this one, or do I cancel that one and revoke my backup and terminate? So, but yeah, I mean, nothing's signed until it's signed. Nothing's formal until it's signed, right? So until it's fully executed.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Jennifer, I really appreciate you coming and spend some time with us today, and I learned a lot, and it was really great to hear what you have to say, and so thanks a lot.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Take care.
You too.